There are 3 types that we'll get into later after we come back from lunch. But these are not even what's considered human consciousness anymore. They're way back up the scale. They're incarnating avatars. It is the return of the Emerald Order that we are seeing in the Indigo children. And there is one group of them that are having the hardest time of all. And these are the ones that are getting a lot of problems with the ADD and all sorts of behavioral issues. And they can be living demons sometimes. And this is why. Type 3, which we'll talk about later a little bit more with the other types. Type 3 Indigo child is a very unique one. It's not just an Orifeme incarnating or an Emerald Order with the higher codes. It is an Orifeme avatar that has made an agreement with one of the races over here called the Nephilim. Okay, Nephilim pop up. Actually, they're running through these lines. They're also running through these lines. Nephilim were part human and part Anunnaki from the second seeding of our race down here. They were the giants that we talked about earlier. The giants came. There were books of the Bible written on this that were destroyed. They came down, they interbred here, and they created physical beings here that were giants, and a whole bunch of them were kicked off the planet because they were going to totally erode the gene code here, and they were going to totally take dominion over the planet. That was not the plan. It was not supposed to be an Anunnaki planet. They have their own. Stay off ours, So, anyway, the Nephilim have been stuck in their own evolution. They have an 11-strand capacity, which is better than the dark matrix, but they're still not plugged into their avatar, full avatar level of consciousness, their Christos, and they cannot finish transmuting beyond that point. So they're a bunch of D11 avatars stuck. Where are they going to go? They can either join with these guys and continue sucking energy from other life forms and planetary systems, or they can start to realize they got a problem. And yes, you may be some of the most intelligent intellectual beings in the universe, but you don't know how to feel anymore because you don't have the frequencies because you're missing the DNA. If you want to evolve, you need help. There are agreements being made all up and down here. Hybridization programs that will allow the ones who want to cross over from either the very dark or the middle dark back into the ascension codes. Type 3 Indigo is a hybrid consciousness, not just gene code. It is 2 avatar identities in one body. They are literally 2 different families of consciousness. It's not just having, let's say with a walk-in, they're both out of the same family of consciousness, where you have one come in and raise the body for a little while, and that one ascends, and then you have the other one come in. They're all related. They have the same flash line coding. You're having 2 diametrically opposite flash line sequence coded beings coming into one manifest incarnation. It can create an extreme polarity problem, an extreme from one side to the other. You may be lucky and come out with an indigo that is absolutely angelic when it's a kid. It may turn into a person that has one of those diseases where they become raving lunatics when they're 60 years old because they get one of these diseases where they start to bark and all sorts of wild other stuff. The negative side will come out if these things aren't harmonized. The purpose for these type 3 indigos is to allow a new opportunity, a new race line of evolution for the Nephilim avatars who want to cross back over into the light to have a new race line they can evolve through. And at the same time, it's helping us because from all of our history that has been hidden for the last 200,000 years, where the Anunnaki came down and messed with the gene pool here, most of us have Anunnaki coding in us now, whether we want it or not. If we're going to evolve, some of us have so much Anunnaki coding that to get the 12th strand back, we need that intervention race too. By helping the Nephilim evolve, the Indigos are giving a place where the Nephilim and the human strains contaminated by Anunnaki can incarnate next into that form and start to clear out their codes and work out their polarity balances so they can then go into the Taurinicium imprint. What it will give the Nephilim is the ability to pick up that one extra strand. They have 11 strands. They'll be able to pick up the one extra strand. But their 11 strands are reversed. That fire letter sequence is turned around backwards. What this will do is turn it back around forward and give them the extra strand so they can finally ascend, hook up with the Rishi, and they're out of here. It will also help the humans whose gene code has been contaminated by the Anunnaki coding to do the same, piece by piece, lifetime by lifetime. But they come in with a huge burden of trying to balance the polarities of the universe within themselves. The Orifeme imprint is dominant, and that's the only way these avatars from the negative side get to come over. They have to agree to be in subservience to the little bit higher coded avatar coming in with the Orifeme. Now the Orifeme have much higher coding. They go from 24 up to 48 coding. That's the only level coding that would not get reversed itself by combining it with an 11-strand nephilim. So you couldn't do it with a Taurinicium, a regular human. You had to go to the level above. Type 3 indigos, which are the predominant ones now. There's about 2,500,000 of them on planet right now. These are the ones that are having real problems with the energies, the chemical imbalances, the issues. They're here to resolve the polarity balances of the races. They have within them some of the highest avatar, and they have within them some of the most screwed up avatar. But they are avatars that are trying to balance that within themselves. Most of them will never become conscious of who they are on that level. They need help balancing the polarities. And we'll talk more about the other two types, which is much less scary. I wasn't too thrilled to find out about type 3s. Like, oh no. I've dealt with Nephilim before in other lifetimes in their pure form, and it was like, oh no, they're not quite as bad as draconian shark-type consciousness, but they don't feel. They can, kill you and observe that as a scientific analysis. Oh, interesting. It responded this way. They just don't feel what they did. And some humans carry this, too. They said, when I was asking, the Guardian matrices, they said that Jeffrey Dahmer was a type 3 indigo. He didn't do things to hurt people on purpose. He just had these urges that he had to fulfill, and it did something for him. He just couldn't get the concept of remorse because he couldn't get the concept of what he had done. That is a very characteristic sign of Nephilim consciousness. They came in here and mutated the heck out of our race and didn't even realize what the higher councils were mad at them. They didn't get it. They're intelligent, but they don't feel the reality. You have this in an indigo body that's a type 3. And I'm going to be putting together a book on how to deal with the 3 different types of indigos. The other 2 are much more positive, and they're not as extreme. They don't have the negative, positive problems as much as these guys. But they have their own issues to deal with. We'll talk more about them, by the way, as you can imagine. But the important part of knowing about these things is without that framework, you're not going to understand indigo children. And without understanding indigo children, you're not going to understand what's happening here on the planet right now that affects everybody on this planet. We're going to be part of a very small group of people who actually get it, who actually have a clue as to what is going down here. And it's going to get stranger and stranger in the next couple of years because we're going through dimensional blend. More contact is going to be made. There's actually a possibility that as soon as by next year, the end of next year, you may have the Elohim crew with their ETs visiting. Staging a landing is possible. It's not decided yet. We have some pretty good spy matrices up there, so as far as finding out what they're going to do and when they're going to do it, we tend to be pretty current on the information. It's still an agenda that's possibly going to be done. It could get as weird as that, as early as next year. Imagine what that would look like. Imagine if all of a sudden you have the new president on TV saying, interrupt this broadcast. Events of an incredible nature. The only thing I can compare it to is the incredible filmage they had from when the Hindenburg went down in history. You had that live broadcast of the guy in tears watching this thing explode in the sky. Well, it'll be kind of that level of intensity. The ships are landing. We are not alone. I can see the newscaster with the melodrama, and everybody glued to their TV sets. Oh my God, we're not alone. The scary part is, if that drama unfolds, it's not the Guardians that are doing it. It's the middle ones that are coming out of the Elohim matrix that want to take human evolution away from 12-strand into the Anunnaki lines in order to quickly up-level the Anunnaki lines, even though it's at the expense of the humans. They're not trying to wipe us out. They're just inadvertently going to damage us more than they already did. What that scenario would look like if it unfolds is you would probably see simply one craft. And it would probably be done live on TV for effect, so everybody get it. And then there would be announcements as very human-looking visitors came off. They may be tall, taller than the average human. And they may be very blonde and very Nordic-looking. And if it happens to be those guys, they're from Nibiru. They're part of the Elohim Nephilim crew from Nibiru that messed with us all through our history. and took out the books of the Bible, the other 12 that were supposed to be in there that told us how to ascend. Yeah. And they will have names like Moses, Abraham, Jesus. And they will pretend, just like they did everywhere since 200,000 years ago, back again in 22,000 BC, they did it again. They will pretend they are our parents. You know that Bible you had? Well, we wrote it. You're our children. This is the line of BS they're planning to run here. If their agendas work well enough, if the planetary grid mechanics that we are working with aren't effective enough, quickly enough, where they still have the opening to get away with it, this is what they're trying to do. Do you know what they're already doing? They are manifesting images of religious figures floating down out of the sky. People have pictures of these. I think they're from Argentina or Brazil. I forget. Yes. And the people that are involved with this, I know a couple of these people, and I like them. I didn't have the heart to tell them that, I'm sorry, it's not Jesus, really. It happens to be a Palladian Nibiruan that's coming down as part of a holographic insert program. They're not our enemies per se, but they're certainly not working in the best interest of us. They're like overprotective parents that decided they don't trust us enough to grow up, so they're not going to let us. That is not fair. That's why they are no longer members of the Guardian agendas. They're no longer members of the Guardian Alliance. So the whole Indigo issue is attached to the whole UFO visitation issue, is attached to what is going to go down here in the next 10-year period. Are we going to see it live on TV? And most of everybody else is going to be sitting around going, oh, neat. Jesus is back, just like the Bible said. It's like, if it were that simple, I'd be thrilled. But it's not that simple. These are plans of deception. What it all comes down to is we have a 12-strand potential as the general populations here. This is an opportunity to get that back, get back the awareness and the history that goes with it, and get back the mechanics to put our DNA back together. In the meantime, if we have too much skepticism and don't move quickly enough and say, I'm too busy, I have these things I have to do, I'll get to DNA later, I'll get to my evolution, maybe in 6 years or so, you just may find yourself as part of a mass program where all of a sudden there's human-looking beings claiming to be our forefathers interacting with society, particularly on the government levels, and you see this unity consciousness emerging, which unity consciousness in its true sense is fine. That's what we're aiming for. But you will see a pseudo-unity consciousness emerging, where if you don't buy the program, you become enemy of the state. If you don't buy the history that's going to involve a planet called Maldak, that's going to involve a twist on history they did in the Sumerian times that changes real history the way it went down, makes them look like they came in and created us and took us from being apes and made us into humans. It's a whole false history that's coming out of the Nibiru matrix. This is what they did before. It's coming through channeling. You'll find it in channeling books. You'll find it on websites. There are certain, I won't name them right now, but there is a certain very large contact movement happening with a Syrian strain. They claim to be guardians and ascended masters and a few other things. They are very sweet, love, light-oriented. They are these guys. But they're not identifying themselves as the same Nibiru ones. They're working several angles with several different groups of contactees. But it's all the same primary agenda behind it, which is kind of mutate us into more Anunnaki cloister lineages, up the Anunnaki lineage, and keep us under mind control for however long it takes to get the Anunnaki where they want them. That's not the original agenda here. This DNA here is called the Templar Sun DNA. When I was talking about the Nephilim from before, this is the configuration they have, that 11 strand, but it's reversed where the fire letters are reversed, so they no longer plug into each other. So they can't undergo cellular transmutation. They're blocked because your fire letters have to be in right sequence in order for one strand to plug into the next, antiparticle and particle diffuse progressively up the thing to de-densify your matter. They're stuck in time. When we're doing the hybridization with them, these are the ones that agreed from that middle matrix that said, okay. Long time ago when we made the decision to do these mutations down here, we see now it was a bad idea. Yeah, whoops. Help. They are asking for help. They're starting to at least to realize that what they did here, for one, was totally unfair to us, but it also inadvertently caused them a lot of problems too. They want to fix it. So they were given amnesty to the point where they're not under judgment, but they have to agree to work under the direction of one of the higher level Elohai families, the Orphim primarily. This is the matrix the Nephilim are coming in with. So when you have an Indigo level 3, which was literally 2 avatars coming into one body, you will have the 24-strand matrix of the Orphim mixed with that, the 11-strand reverse matrix. Progressively, the 24 strands will begin to reverse the polarity on the fire letters there. They'll match up because they have a lot of similar coding, and it will turn the negatives back into positives. But this whole process of the Indigo 3 lifetime is going to be about balancing polarities, because they're literally manifesting through the gene code, and that will manifest through the consciousness and the biochemical nature of the brain. Because what science doesn't realize yet is they look at DNA, they look at chemical imbalances, they look at the chemicals in the body. They don't realize these are the translations, chemical translations and manifestations of that deeper imprint. That's what they are. When they see DNA, it's simply a chemical translation of the morphogenetic imprint that's held in the scalar sequences. So they're not going to be able to figure out at all what is happening with any of the Indigo children, because there's a DNA thing happening here that's so far beyond what science is ready to deal with. They're going to be relatively useless in helping Indigos. They're going to be totally useless in helping what's going to happen if those guys actually do have the audacity to land. You know, they're already doing that. There's been landings, little private ones with little groups. Some happen out in Colorado, some happen in Arizona. Little isolated events that don't make it on the news, but you hear about them in the tabloids sometimes. You know, group in Arizona, makes breeding contracts with, ETs. Half of the stuff is nonsense. The other half isn't. That's what's scary. We're in a situation now in our society where we're being taught that what is reality is actually fiction, and we're being taught to live fiction. The reality of ET contact has been part of our history for 70 years. 70 years ago, there were contracts made. It wasn't Roswell, it was before that, with the Zeta races, who are coming out of the Draconian matrix. Were made with the U.S. government and several other governments. These are literal contracts signed. The MJ-12 groups evolved out of that. You don't find this in our history books for some reason. Oh, by the way, when the Zetas came down and decided they wanted to hybridize, and the government gave permission for that, so they let them abduct people as long as they erased their memory so they wouldn't remember it, so they could get the gene code. That's what's been going on here. These poor people that have been having contact and being abducted and being terrified by thinking they're crazy and going to psychologists, and the psychologists are telling them they're crazy. These people aren't crazy. They're being messed with. All right? But at least they're not the only ones messing. There's also people who are contactees that are Indigos, or they're going to be parents of Indigos. Indigos come in by something called a Palladorian birthing contract. If you have an Indigo child, you had a soul agreement, actually a Rishi-level agreement, to serve the role of parenting an Indigo child here, which meant you would have to have certain accelerations in your own gene code, which means you would have at least, from the time you were a child, on the astral D4 level, direct contact with some of the guardian groups who would have been progressively through the astral body been activating portions of your DNA. So if you have Indigo children, you have had contact, you just don't have the memory opened yet. So there's a lot to this story. If we can begin understanding it, we can begin positioning ourselves in a position of power to direct it in the best interest of everyone. Because we're not against Nephilim, we're not against Draconians, but allowing them to come in, take over, and deny the evolutionary potential that belongs to humanity doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help them either, as the Nephilim are now finding all of these centuries and centuries later. They're finding that because they mutated us, they're stuck too. They could have got that 12 strand back. They could have had the ability to interact with us and create a race strain within a win-win situation that they would have evolved long ago already too. So they're realizing the error of the ways. The Draconians are very far from realizing that. Now, I want to get into that's the matrix of the Nephilim that's being combined. What do we have next here? Okay. This is another, wow. When we get into the Palladian Nibiruans, it's called the Axios Sun matrix. It's another DNA configuration. This one belongs to a lot of the ones that would be involved with that stage landing. Okay, they're connected to the other guys, but these guys have an extra problem. It's called the Templar seal. And it was put on them for messes they created before, where they just were not allowed to go higher until they went back down and reincarnated over and over and over until they clean up the messes they made. And this is coming out of they're Nephilim, but they're the ones particularly associated with the Palladian Nibiruans. And if you look through things, this might be a good time to start checking out, like, what's on the websites. All right, ET contactees. Who's talking to what out there? You'll start to have an idea when you see who's talking to what that what is, and what agenda is behind what it's saying. Okay? These would be the guys that are most likely to make first contact and to pretend there are ancient, Noahs and people like that. So if we understand, this is about DNA. This is about race evolutionary agendas. This is not some fluff-headed New Age picture. This has been going on all along. We need to realize it. Put the next one in, please. All right. These really small ones, they're just making indication of the seals in the DNA, which are distortions that were put in on purpose to change the way it was supposed to work, to block certain things, to control how consciousness would evolve. Our DNA came in with a lot of different types of seals. Some of them are described in Voyager's Mente book, and it gets really confusing. I mean, there's a lot of things, and this changed this, and the consciousness did this instead of this because you changed that. It's like, it's a science. We tried to touch on some of it. This is called the Balil Sun Matrix. It's a 10-strand matrix, and there's a whole big movement going on now. Usually the people that are working with the Tree of Life that has 10 Sephiroth. The Tree of Life, as anybody doing Cathara healing knows, is about the DNA and about the Cathara grid within the body and about how that evolves into ascension. The people that are working to help people with this DNA configuration, humans here with this DNA configuration, are working with the 10 tree. We're working in Cathara with the 12 tree because we're working to regenerate the 12-strand pattern. These guys with the 10 tree of life are working with this DNA matrix because there's a huge amount of humans on the planet right now who have this DNA matrix because of interactions with the Anunnaki races throughout our history, from Sumerian times and before Sumerian times. So the Balil Sun matrix has a 10-strand capacity. Now there are ways through the Melchizedek ordinations that anybody can get transmission of the 12-strand pattern. And they will at least have it when they didn't have it at birth. It's a morphogenetic field transmission. This is what we do the ordinations for. They're not about church. They're about DNA and ascension. Okay? But the matrices involved with this are not being taught that that's an option, which again, Council feels is not fair. They should at least be able to be taught it's an option. It is felt with the matrices of Elohim that are connected to these guys too, that the consciousness isn't mature enough to handle itself. So they'll help them evolve, but this way, so they can still keep a rein on them. Now if you look at some people on planet Earth and how absolutely wacky they can be and how cruel they can be, would you really want them running around in 3 harmonics of the universe? It's bad enough they're in 1 on 1 planet. So it's not a negative agenda, the ones that are working to, with the 10 tree. It's an agenda meant for a level of consciousness and a certain DNA matrix that will help them evolve to the point where they could handle themselves with the power that the 12-strand matrix will give them. They're the Balil Sons. They have a lot to do with going back in time to some of the Jeshua lines. In the Voyager's book, we talk about the Christ story in a very unique way. We talk about the 3 Christs, the guy who was crucified, who wasn't even a Christ, he was a decoy, and the 2 who ascended. One was a 12th level avatar, one was a 9th level avatar. The 12th level avatar was out of the Elohai families, and the 9th level was out of the Elohim families. Okay, we talk a lot about that. There's Jeshua 9s and Jeshua 12s, we call them, and they're family lines that came down because each of them left progeny, and each of them, there are Christic lines here, 2 of them. The Jeshua 9s tend to have this. These are the guys that are going to get kind of suckered in by the story of the Palladian Nibiruans, because they were directly involved with creating this mutation in the first place. So there's so many agendas here that are happening simultaneously with the DNA. If you're aware of them, you can at least have a choice in which one you're going to buy into. You can at least say, well, if our potential is 12-strand, well, I think we should have the ability to have that potential back. That's why I'm here. That's why the Orpheum are here. That's why the Indigo children are here. To fulfill a promise that was made 550 million years ago with the Mente rescue mission, That was called the Covenant of Peleador, and the Ark of the Covenant referred to that, okay, to seeding the races. About 248,000 years ago, during a period that was called the Temple Wars period, that again you won't find in your history books yet, there was another covenant made after a whole bunch of messes, and 2 seedings went down the tubes, and again the same forces were fighting, and that's why the 2 seedings went down the tubes before. There was an agreement made called the Emerald Covenant, where a group of the interstellar races from all the harmonics who decided they would help humanity, reaffirm their position on helping humanity to get the 12th strand back. They made a promise. And the Emerald Order were the ones who, ran the whole thing from the higher harmonics, the Elohai families. And there's huge groups of interstellar races involved with each agenda, including the Emerald Covenant. Once upon a time, the Elohim Matrix was a part of the Emerald Covenant. Once upon a time, the Jeshua Nimes were a part of the Emerald Covenant. But they decided to take it more into the Anunnaki evolution, and they broke the Emerald Covenant. So they're no longer considered a guardian group in the terms of guarding your right to have your heritage back. All right, so if you understand a little bit about how DNA applies to the agendas that are going down now, you get this bigger picture of reality that's going on. You also start to realize that humans have ET gene lines in them now because there's been hybridization going on periodically. So we all have something called a DNA substrand matrix pattern. We're connected to one of these, or some of these, or a couple of these. We'll all have some of this stellar coding in us, and we will be most susceptible to the information broadcast coming through the matrices that have the coding we have in our DNA. That's why the fact that you guys are in this room would probably imply you have the Elohai coding, because this is an Elohai transmission pattern, and you were drawn in and guided to be here by that frequency. There are people, and there's a huge amount of them, they're going to be drawn into the Elohim matrix that have the Anunnaki distortions in the DNA. They're not being told about the other option available to them, and that's what's not fair. And guardian races are not going to intervene and wage war over it. It'll just destroy the planet if they did that. But they are trying to make the option known, where if you do happen to have, from the J9 strains, if you happen to have Nephilim in your gene code, this is okay. It means the ascension process happens a little differently, and there's things that have to be done, but you can fix this. You don't have to go through another 2,000, 2 million years of evolution under somebody else's control to do it. So it's really just being aware. How much do you want to know? We feel that you throw it out there, and who wants to know will come. So we're doing that. All right, can we flip? Thanks. Do I need that one? All right, and the final one I was talking about, the draconian DNA matrix, it's called the Black Sun 10-strand reverse. They have 10-strand capacity, can pull in 10 dimensions of consciousness, cannot transmute form from one harmonic to another. But some of them, because they've crossed with some of the higher strains of the Elohai in various periods, can shapeshift to some degree. So you have dragons running around in human form. If you start seeing this is a phenomenon. I've had a number of people independently from all over different parts of the United States tell this one researcher who I know, who's like a researcher of UFO phenomena, I think I'm losing my mind because this person that I've known all my life, I was looking at them one time, they turned around and they turned into a lizard. They literally stood there and they were not a person anymore. They were a lizard, and then they turned back again, and I think they're going crazy. They're not going crazy. Not all human bodies have humans in them right now. And that's going to be a rude awakening. That doesn't mean you hate some people and love others. That means you got to realize we have a really multifaceted problem here. If you start to see weird stuff, like reptile faces popping out, even in etheric vision, where you just start to see reptiles inside certain people, you're identifying, your inner senses are picking up on this DNA matrix, the reptilian DNA matrix. They're most susceptible to being manipulated by the higher levels of the dark avatars. They can be fixed too, but their matrix doesn't tell them that. They're just they're given belief programs of blind subservience. Just follow this doctrine. They don't teach them anything about their energy fields. They keep them dumb, so they can use them here. But they're still human. Everybody here on this planet, this is the redeeming factor, came out of the Adami imprint originally, which was the Turanicium, which was the Orifim, which was the Emerald Order. Okay, we all still have a seed of that left, even if you have a Black Sun matrix. It may take a while to reverse something like this, but it can be done if you know the option exists. those people that have, human beings right now walking around with us, who have some portion of this or even all of this, there are literal race lines among us that have this DNA configuration. They don't know it. And it's a good thing it's not common knowledge, because everybody would be really trying to kill each other, pointing fingers at each other. You have a black sun matrix. It's not about that. Black sun matrices, Bolero matrices, all these DNA matrices can be fixed and restored. All it comes down to is understanding fire letter sequences and what fire letter sequences need to be repaired and reordered. When you're working with the Elohai councils, they know the mechanics of that. They have the programs, the original ones. And that's what they're bringing back here. That's what the Indigos coming here are about. They're resetting in the grids, in the earth grids, in the race morphogenetic field, the original pattern of that first seed race in harmonic 4, and then in harmonic 3, the Anahazi, that everything else came out of. They're resetting that pattern here. So no matter what mess you have in the gene code at this point, you can plug in to the ascension codes and start getting your coding back, your flash line sequences back. That's the highest agenda working on the planet. Okay, we can go past that. All right, I think we showed that one before, yeah. That is the imprint, the 24 strand, and it's like 24 to 30 strand capacity of the orifeme. That's not the emerald order orifeme, that's the orifeme. That would represent the matrix of indigo number 2. Type 2 indigos are incarnating ancient souls. They're not incarnating from here. Usually when you die here, you go up to about D4 frequency, reincarnate back down from D4. These guys are incarnating from the 24th to the 30th frequencies of consciousness. And they have to go through a whole interesting process to do that, to downstep into a body pattern down here. So type 2 indigos will have this DNA matrix. They are here on world service missions, and they are also here to help reset and hit critical mass of the right flash line sequences within the race morphogenetic field for the DNA, because if there's enough of them and there's a strong enough concentration of the right sequence patterns, it will flip over a lot of the mutations in the race morphogenetic field for the DNA. We're all connected through our morphogenetic fields, the scalar patterns. We're all part of the Earth's morph field, and we're all a part of the universal morph field. But when we bring it down to us as an individual, is connected to a collective, a family, is connected to a race, is connected to the planet. So they're coming in. Indigo 2s are coming in to give back the 12-strand pattern here by having double that. So every one counts as 2, as if there were 2 to reset that pattern. They're trying to hit critical mass. So the potential 12-strand is given back to this race before the other guys get a chance to hijack it again. All right, and then we'll get to level 3s now. All right, that is the Emerald Sun, 48-strand DNA matrix. And they're really beautiful. Like, like when you start to realize these are frequencies of consciousness, it's like filling out the frequencies. And when you see little scrawny suns, you realize you have limited consciousness. And when you have something that looks like that, you have 48 levels of consciousness, focused and aware. These beings have the potential to be awesome, but they can't come in with all of that activated, or they'd totally blow up a fetal pattern. It's a process getting into a fetal body. With the Emerald Order orifeme, which are the ones that were the original Elohai, they're literal incarnations of the Elohai, not just avatars, but ascended masters levels. They come in from their non-manifest states in the ultra-terrestrial level, come down into the meta-terrestrial level, and progressively work their way down into where they can incarnate here in pieces, because you can't fit it all in a human body, it would blow it up. This is the potential they have. Now, the human imprint down here can't hold more than 12 dimensions of consciousness. With a matrix like this, or even the 24 pattern, they can open up to the avatar level, full 12-strand activation, and then they can access the rest of their consciousness. They can't fully embody it and focus it here, but they can move their consciousness up and pull information. They can read the whole 15-dimensional matrix and up to the Katic level. So they can pull very pure information. Now, these are the level 1 indigos. They come in, usually, not even so much just to help critical mass in the DNA for the 12-strand. They're coming in on planetary grid work projects. And very often their whole life is just about that. They just kind of disassociate from other things. They're not as sociable as the type 2s. And the type 1 and 2 are not as rambunctious as type 3s, that have the polarity issues to deal with more. When they come in, they have the ability to awaken to be ascended masters. That doesn't mean they will. If the gene code doesn't activate properly within the right time frames, they won't be able to fully actualize their potential. That's where we come in. If we're aware of what's going on here and we start to create situations in our culture that will give them the framework they need to awaken quickly, they will be fine. They're here to make sure this planet doesn't go into pole shift between now and 2017. And they won't even be grown up by then. They're just here as an energy field. Because right now we have stargates opening, whether or not we believe in them yet. They're real. They're at the planetary core, and they're called the Halls of Amente. They haven't opened in 200,000 years, 210,000, 216 years. They are opening now. They will open in 2012, between 2012 and 2017 for a brief period of time. If that opening does not go properly, if the flash line sequences in the planetary grid are off, it will create pole tilt. And this is why the type 1s are coming in fleet. They can rebalance the planetary grids because they can hold the literal flash line sequences all the way up to the Akkadic level if they're activated. They can reset that into the planetary grids to correct any planetary grid blockages that would create pole shift. When we do our trips to Egypt and Peru and these kind of things, this is what it's about. Unfortunately, I'm not going on vacation. I would love to. We're going there to run the frequency of these codes back into the planetary grid to make sure that as the vortice is open, which they are doing now, the 7 seals that they talked about in the Bible, seal 4 opens on 5/5/2000, May 5th. That's at Giza. We just recoded that manually because if we didn't, that would have begun the pole shift. There's a lot of channel groups that are talking about, yes, in 2003 the pole shift starts. That's when it would have started. All right. Correction. We recoded that one. Next is Peru. So what we're doing is the mission of the Emerald Order. It's very intense information. It's not baby level at all. We weren't supposed to have this information here for another 2,000 years. But the planet wasn't going to make it to that point. So this was the crash course, tell them as much as they can handle to get this grid work done. And they'll be okay. And that's what's being done. That's why I'm out here giving information. There's going to be more people like me talking about this as they start their awakening cycles. Okay, so when we're dealing with type 1s, we're dealing with this, the 48-strand emerald sun DNA matrix. And what's interesting about this matrix is to have that level of consciousness incarnate into a fetal pattern, it has to be done in 2 pieces. It has to be done through a walk-in process. And this is another thing that you go to a psychologist and again they think you're a split personality or you're nuts or whatever. You're not. A walk-in is a literal process where one soul starts the fetal pattern, does fetal integration, raises the body to a certain level, and then they have soul agreements that, okay, I'm done with what I needed to learn here, and this one didn't want to have to go into a body or couldn't go into a body until a certain age. They switch. They literally switch. One goes into ascension, pulls its fire letter sequences out, while the other puts theirs in. And it recodes the body. It's very precise. It's very tight wiring issues, and it's orchestrated from higher levels. All of the type 1s have to do the walk-in process, or they cannot activate to be the avatars and then the ascended masters that they are. If they don't undergo the walk-in process, they will be stunted into no more than a 12-strand activation level. And again, there's timing factors. Certain things have to happen by like age 12, certain things by age 22, certain by 33, and if they don't fulfill their potential. These are a group of children here that are here, and a group of adults too, that to finish what they intended by coming, they're going to have a whole different school system. They're going to have classes that teach them about their biofield, teach them about find who you are. You're somebody else, find it. You know, you're not just you when you look in the mirror. There's more to you. Find you. They need this assistance so they don't get in the brainwashing program that we're taught in public schools here. Or they will never be able to reach this potential, which means they won't get the grid work done. Which means this race may not have to worry about it after 2017. It's not baby games anymore. It's not a fear thing either. As long as we can accommodate what the Indigos are here to do, it'll work out fine. We're scheduled to win this round. 200,000 years ago, the last time the Stargates opened, we lost. It went into pole tilt then. And when things balanced again, the negative sides took over. Well, the negative ones and the middle grounds. And they've been fighting here ever since. And every time some of the Elo High families tried to come in, They would wipe out their information, bringing the Ascension teachings, and they would wipe out their populations whenever possible, too. We're in a unique position in history, and the Indigos are leading the way, and if we help them, they'll lead us back to the victory of our own heritage. That's what it's about, and that's the level we need to understand. This is not small stuff. We need to build places where these Indigo children and the parents that are going to be carrying them can go for safety, for shelter, for new understanding of what's happening here, so they can begin to activate, so they don't go into having to have Ritalin to control their behavior because their biofields are short-circuiting. Because even the ones with the high-strand coding can have that problem too. Many of the type 3s are the autistic children. About 99% they said of autistic children are type 3s, where the negative one tried to take over the body and the orifeme shut it down. And it just won't. So it freezes the whole ability to communicate, and the outside personality just goes into terror. There's this war going on inside, and it can't even fathom what's happening to itself on a conscious level. So there are diseases. SIDS is another one, sudden infant death syndrome. This is mostly Indigos, of all the types, where they get to a certain point in the fetal body and they realize they're not going to be able to activate the gene code the way they had intended. They're not going to be able to do what they came to do, so they leave, and they look for another body as quickly as possible. This is the thing science doesn't understand yet. I mean, they look at this, what's causing this horrible problem? Well, sometimes the horrible problem happens to be a choice by the soul that's trying to incarnate in there. And parents need to understand this, too. I'll save time for questions later, though. I just want to... Okay.
What I want to tell you is that they are also using the Indigo in order to be hosts for Indigos without them coming out into the world as human beings.
Right.
Yes.
You mean they're using him in overshadow?
You know, like a human being like me, for
Yeah.
instance, I can be used as a host to have the Indigo inside of me.
Yeah.
And it functions that way without coming out into the world.
Yeah, some of them will do overshadow. That's called overshadowing, and what that is, I've done this before in my incarnations. I haven't been in a full physical incarnation since Miriam's period back in the biblical days, but I have had numerous experiences of overshadowing one of the other souls in my soul matrix that incarnated. And she would go into fetal integration and get into the gene code, and I'd come down into the astral field and make the link between the astral field and the higher levels of consciousness. So she had her interior guidance system open, So I practiced for this life by doing that for a while. This time, I came in through this. I haven't activated all that yet. That's my potential, and if I keep wiping myself out with overwork like this, I'm never going to get it activated. It's not about ego. It's not about who's got a better gene code, It's about what did you as a high being, because we all are ascended masters. We all started there. What do we come to do here? We all came to do something. Now, with this gene code, the issues for children, it's an issue because walk-in can be a challenging experience. You'll also have bleed-through from a very early age between the experiences here and in the antiparticle universe because they have the coding open between them. So they get two sets of memories running concurrently. They may also be birthing in with much of their incarnational memory running before their eyes before they can even talk. They know they came from somewhere else, but they don't know what that means, and they get out here, try to understand, and they're hit with frameworks of reference that cannot explain them to themselves. That stunts their awakening process. It makes it very, very hard for the Indigos to awaken. That's why many of you in this room may be Indigos. You may be the type 1 Indigos. You just never got to the point where you could understand what that meant or how to find it. Knowing this information may begin that opening for you, where you can start to feel it. Okay, I think I'm an Indigo. Might I be 1, 2, or 3? I'm going to do a book, not a 2-year publishing job book, but one of the spiral-bound ones specifically. I'm very detailed how to spot these characteristics. If I try to do it in a short form and stick some little dinky things in the chart pack, there's some references there, but there are a lot of characteristics to look for with each of these types. I'm going to do a book. It's probably going to be for mail order for anybody who wants it within the next couple of months, that specifically how to handle the Indigo situation. If you think you are one, if you know one, what to do for Indigos in general, what the kids that are spotted with different disorders. There are certain physical disorders that are very characteristic. Like these kind come in, often asthma. They come in with asthma as a baby. Oftentimes they come in as jaundiced infants with the yellowing of the skin, the liver's not functioning properly. Often they have spleen problems. There's all sorts of different things. The body's here, or the body patterns here that they get, that fetal imprint from the parents' imprint, is not quite ready to handle that level of frequency. So there are adjustment issues that come in with all of them. I'm going to do a detailed rather than just try to throw it at you, oh, this, and this, and you can spot one. It's not that easy. But once you see how the characteristics fall, you will be able to start walking around and you'll see these children. And that's when you're empowered to help them. They're all good. The ones even with the Nephilim. They have the real challenge because they don't get to activate all of their strand capacity. They're just here to have the capacity to reverse the negative Nephilim matrix. So they don't get the glory of being able to turn into 12th level avatars and go through portals. They're not going to reach that this life, and they're not supposed to, and that's okay. Some of them may die early. Some of them may get into drug abuse to numb themselves from the internal conflict. They need a lot of help and support, love, and nurturing is what they need. It's not even going to help them to understand this stuff. It's way over their heads. They're going to be too trapped in the surface conflicts. So you'd handle them one way. Then there's the other two who need to wake up as fast as possible because they came here to be avatars and ascended masters. Not to say, I'm an ascended master and walk around with their nose in the air. They came here to say, excuse me, I got to go do planetary grid work. Sorry, can't go to the football game right now. You know what I mean? We really need to create an awareness where we can accommodate these children. There's 155,000 of them coming in between now and 2017. They're just the infants. There's a bunch of them here already. And they're not awakening yet because they don't have a framework to awaken in. So if we can begin to create those frameworks for them, they will begin to awaken, which will help them do the grid work they need to do as far as these guys go. So hopefully we won't be like a handful of people trying to make sure the planetary grids don't go into reversal. Yeah, there's strength in numbers. The more people that are working with setting the patterns of the grid right, the more chance of shifting out of the potential of pole tilt we have. We don't have to see pole tilt if we're ready to wake up. All right. Now, okay, a couple quick points I want to make with the incarnational heritage is, we're in, most of the people on the planet, I will say instead of we in this room, are of the Aryan root race cycle. They have the third and fourth DNA strand activation job. Okay? The indigos come in from much higher levels than the astral plane, where most of the Aryan souls come in from. They come in from, as I was saying, the Rishi level and the Ascended Master level. All right, so here, first of all, they're completely different levels of consciousness. They're not astral awareness at all. They have astral awareness, but they are just beings they can be, if they activate, beings of a magnitude that is awesome. And there's no ego involved with that. Ego is a lower, kind of neophyte characteristic. We find out, oh boy, I have a big gene code. I'm somebody important. That just means you didn't realize you were somebody important, which means you didn't have your gene code activated enough to know everybody's important. So if you're still stuck in a thing of some people are better than others just because they have higher levels of development, that's still an ego issue. That means you don't get that we're all equal in value from the smallest to the largest. You don't get the law of one yet. And that means if you're an ascended master claiming that and you're still having those value judgments, you're showing that you're not. And there's a lot of that going around these days. Okay. Let's see. Okay, for the parents of indigos, this is where ET contact comes in. But ET contact on the D4 level, through the dream state usually first, sometimes from childhood. Parents will be involved with oversoul and rishi contracts to have the indigos, and they will be prepared for that through at least astral level out-of-body type of experiences through childhood. Some will have, many of the ET people, the contactees, are really experiencing the fulfillment of their Palladorian birthing contracts. They're getting their gene codes amped up, but they don't understand it yet. They don't understand what it means or why this seems like a dream, but it's not a dream, and how did they take me through that wall? I'm physically solid, and so is the wall. They don't have the framework yet to understand that if you change the oscillation rate of the body, you can literally make it walk through walls down here. It's all vibrational relationships, and the ETs know how to do this. And I don't even like the term ET, because it makes you think of little green Martians. And I don't particularly like the term angel, because it makes you think of big things with wings that are much more important than you are, that you have to bow down in subservience to. Both of those terms are misleading. Both of those terms set you up for manipulation. If you look at them both as visitors from other worlds and higher levels of evolution, frequency-wise, it brings them all down into perspective. You know, forget the spaceships, laser guns, and feathery wings. Let's get down to who are these people. Okay? We need to stop looking at ourselves as little lowly sinful humans and these big wonderful angels, half of whom are on the dark side. The other half are okay. There are winged beings out there. But they're winged because they're of an extraterrestrial strain that happens to have wings. You know? Like nobody ever seems to make the connection between angels' wings. Why do angels have wings? Because God gave them wings. Well, yeah. How? Genetically. How? Through a race of beings that has wings as their genetic imprint. They are not of this planet, therefore they are ET. They're interchangeable terms. And we need to reinterpret how we look at things with this angel ET thing. Angelic consciousness is really between D6 and D9. Angels aren't that high up on the totem pole. You have the ability to bring in D6, D9 consciousness if you activate your gene code. If you get the 12 the pattern, transmit it back into your field, and progressively work to activate it in the Kundalini, you can be angels embodied because you all have a level of angelic consciousness. So we're learning to reperceive the whole structure. You know, forget bound down to things with wings just because they have wings and they claim to be from God. We're from God too, you know. So let's equalize it a little. Respect where it's due, but not to the point of blindness where we can be easily blindsided. Now, let's see if I want to cover anything else on here. Powder and breathing contracts. Yeah. Yeah, we covered most of that. Okay. All right, this is the visual difference between the contemporary human DNA and the small Orifeme 24-strand indigo type 2 DNA. That's not even the type 1s that have the 48-strand capacity. Here we have the potential of having, if we get the transmission to receive the morphogenetic imprint for the cloister race strands, this would be the 12-strand diamond sun matrix. Right now, most humans on the planet have 1, 2, 3 strands activated, and they're just beginning to activate strand 4, which they have the birth imprint on. These strands, they didn't even have the birth imprint on, unless they happen to be of a cloister race strain. The Melchizedeks are coming in now, too, which are a cloister race that goes with the next root race that's not here yet. They have strand 5 on the birth imprint, but they don't have strand 6. None of them have strand 6 right now, even the Melchizedeks, unless they get a full induction of the 12-strand pattern, which is a process of ordination that takes place when you're dealing with the higher Elohai councils and that kind of thing in the Melchizedek priesthoods. You come down here, the level 2 indigos come in with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strands activated. At birth, they're coming in with that. But strand 4 is not plugged in yet. So their process, they have the full strand in 1, 2, 3 active, and strand 5 and 6 active. Part of strand 4, the higher part, their first years of life are the process of activating strand 4. By the time they hit 12, 4 finishes, 5 and 6 plugged in. You have a fully integrated soul by age 12. Usually, if the human imprint was working the right way with the 12-strand pattern, a normal 12-strand being would begin soul integration, 4th, 5th, and 6th strand activation at age 12 and finish it at 22. These guys begin it at birth and finish it at age 12. By 22, they can be embodied oversouls. By 33, they can be embodied avatars. This is what their potential is if we help them. And it's worth helping them because they will teach us so many things. The information I'm bringing in now is nothing compared to what some of these guys are going to be able to reach if they are able to get their coding straight. So, okay, we can move past that one. Okay, this many of you may have seen. It's the level of it. In fact, I don't even need that. I only have the graph up. It's easier to just describe it on the graph. This is in the charts too, just to remind us here of something we've had in some of the other workshops, where understanding the levels of personal identity that go with the 15-dimensional structure. Some people that haven't been here before haven't seen this, so I'll really quickly go over it. We have, again, the 15-dimensional structure here, and then the 3 levels of non-dimensionalized energy matrix. In harmonic universe 1, D1, 2, 3, we have the incarnate identity. This is our identity structure, and this is what the indigos need to know They need to be raised with a model that shows them where their parts fit so they can begin to very aggressively activate their parts. And as long as they know the parts are there, they don't get lost in confusion. So in harmonic 1, we have our incarnate self. In harmonic 2, dimensions 4, 5, and 6, we have our soul, or our soul matrix. There's a tangible structure to the soul, which is the name of the tape program I have back there that begins Kundalini activation. It is made out of scalar waves, just like everything else. And there's no difference between the stuff your leg is made out of and the stuff your soul is made out of. This is your identity that they forgot to tell you about in health class, okay? This will help you to become who you were supposed to be, who you wanted to be when you came here. And this is a model that will help the indigos become who they intended to be by awakening. This is the awakening model. It will teach you, if you work with it, and the mechanics that go with it, how to activate your DNA, go into soul integration, which is bringing this level of identity into your incarnate body. Then there's the oversoul in harmonic 3, D7, 8, and 9. After you integrate this, then you would bring in this level of identity. And remember, these are frequencies of consciousness, scalar waves, flash line sequences. You're bringing them into the body, into the DNA. You're expanding your consciousness into those levels. You have the avatar level in harmonic 4. This is where you finish your 12-strand pattern. This is the capacity right here of harmonic 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 12-strand diamond sun DNA matrix. You come out here to the Rishi identity, which takes you back out of pre-matter liquid light and really into just wave form. You're back to pure scalar form. It's not as dimensionalized as the stuff down here. There's still dimensions, but they're changing that form already, where you're not even in pre-matter. This is the capacity of the double diamond sun 24th strand of the Orifeme, Indigo 2. They would be able to, when fully activated, embody all of this, like the 12th strand can do, embody all of this of the antiparticle double as well, which the 12th strand embodies some of it. There's like, this would get into levels of analysis of the morphogenetic field of universal structure that I don't have time to do right now, where you have sets of 15-dimensional matrices and parts of consciousness stationed in each of them. I won't even go there right now. But this is the capacity to become a Rishi, of integrating all of that to become an avatar, all of the double version of that avatar to become a Rishi, which would look like a sun. It's a glowing ball of light when perceived from lower dimensions. I won't even go there as far as when we look up in the sky, what do we see? We see glowing balls of light. What might that mean? If all things are consciousness. That's a couple of the questions I'm still trying to put into a perspective that can be understood. But when we get to Rishi level consciousness, we are a spherical identity. We have integrated all of the frequencies, fire letter patterns. This is the capacity of Indigo 2. And out here, integrating those 3 levels of Ascendant Mastery is the capacity, if activated, of the Indigo number 1, the Emerald Sun, 48 strand DNA matrix. Why these guys are important on the planet now? Most of them won't even do education programs like I'm involved with right now. Most of them will be probably quite reclusive and just go do the thing they came to do. They are able, because of the coding, to pull frequency literally from the Akkadic matrix, which is this final level before you expand into source. Pull direct current all the way through, like a beam of light, all the way through all the dimensional fields down and ground it into the earth field. That will reset the grids for the whole planet, not just for the people on it. So that's their mission. That's why they're here. And it may manifest in some strange ways. They may not know about it. And if they don't go through this awakening process, they're not going to know about it in time. But their higher parts still know about it. Even if they haven't integrated them, they will begin to beam the frequency through them anyway, even if they're not consciously aware that, oh, gee, I came in with an Indigo contract, you know. If they can't get that far, they will beam as much of that really high frequency in to recode the planetary grids, to make sure we go through this Stargate cycle peacefully, without any major messes happening on the surface. Okay. Okay, over here I can read this better. Let's see what points I want to point out here. Okay, this is where I was explaining the age differences as far as we see those identity levels. We realize basically DNA activation is the process of progressively doing first soul integration, then oversoul integration, then avatar integration, then as a 12-strand you're out of here and you can go into Rishi integration on the higher levels and full ascension. So this is the basic process of our evolution that for some reason we've forgotten with a lot of help. If we understand that, then we can start to realize there are levels that were normal levels when this was supposed to happen, when the 12-strand pattern was activating the right way. Could you put the next graph on it? Okay. Contemporary humanity, right now, the soul integration process, they're born with strand 3 active. The 4th is blocked at age 12 because of the mutations in strand 4 through 6. It's blocked. It doesn't happen. And what happens? We remain 3-dimensional consciousness. We remain trapped, phase-locked into 3D. And what this does is back up the metabolic rate, it backs up the biochemical hormones and all of that, and turns the body into something it wasn't meant to be, and it starts to self-consume. It starts to degenerate itself at the age of 12. It sets in motion the death hormones that begin the process of eroding the cellular structure. That was not how the original pattern was intended to work. What normally was supposed to happen was between age 12 and 22. You'd come in with strand 3 activated. Between age 12 and 22, you would begin to activate strand 4 through 6. By age 22, you wouldn't go through these weird emotional changes and stuff that happen in adolescence here. They happen because all the chemicals back up, and they can't do what they're supposed to do, which is complete integration of the 4th through 6th dimensional aspects of consciousness. That's how we're supposed to be working here. So by 22, we're supposed to be able to be fully embodied souls, have 6-dimensional instead of 3-dimensional consciousness. By the age of 33, between 23 and 33, we work on oversoul integration, which is 7th through 9th dimensional consciousness. And if we were working the right way, between age 33 and 44, we would finish integrating our avatar identity. The body would not die. It would transmute to the next harmonic. You would be able to get mastery over the matter density process. That was our heritage. That's what we're trying here with the Emerald Covenant to give back to humanity. And that's what the other ones are trying to not get you back. Because if you get back to that point and you realize, wow, look what happened here. Look what they did to this race. We might not be real happy about it. And that's some of the reason why some of the ones that are still trying to repress us here, they don't want to contend with what they might unleash. If we get this back and realize how badly we were treated, because they think in terms of abuse, they're afraid that if we get the power, we may treat them as badly as they treated us. And they know enough about the law of reciprocity to realize that there's probably a good chance for that to happen with some of us. They don't want it to happen. Now, with indigo human hybrids, which they are hybrids, they will have soul integration, the strand 5 and 6 activation at birth, and then 4 activates from birth to age 12. So full soul integration happens by age 12 unless there's genetic blockages. Now, when a soul of any kind integrates into the fetus, that fetal pattern is created by the flashline sequences of mom and dad put together. If there are distortions in those patterns, that fetal pattern has distortion. So the incoming soul, no matter how high it is, will pick up those distorted flashline patterns. This is what's a problem for all of the indigos right now. Even if they have their coding fine, as soon as they hit that fetal pattern for integration, they have distortions occurring. One of the first things they need to do, and this is why, the biggest reason why Cathara healing is being introduced, they need the Maharic recoding process by which the 12th dimensional pattern is reactivated here through the Maharic shield, which is a scalar grid that opens below the feet once you know how to work the Kundalini systems. That will reset and clear out very rapidly any of the distorted flashline patterns, aka DNA mutations, that have been set from the parents. So they can get that out of the way and then get on with their soul integration process. So by age 12, they can hold 6 dimensions of consciousness. Between 12 and 22, they do over soul integration. By age 33, they can ascend. They are masters. They're 12-strand avatars, if they're given the opportunity to understand this structure. Right now, you send these indigo children into contemporary society, peer pressure alone is enough to get them to not want to know. Because once you're teaching this stuff, do you think you can send them to public school? Good luck. If they don't get beat up constantly by the consciousness around them because they're so obviously different, they'll be harassed by the teachers. Plus, they don't handle the authority of the teachers well at all. They know more. They sense that they know more. Don't you tell me. This isn't all right. The authority is an issue for indigos because they have a higher authority, their own connection to source. And they feel it even if they're not awakened to what it means yet. And if you try to violate that, or if you're in a system that violates that, they're going to push back. They'll act out. They'll avoid. They'll go through a whole set of reaction patterns, because more than an average human who only has 3 dimensions of consciousness that really doesn't feel the difference. These guys feel the difference. They know in other reality systems it doesn't work this way here. They know when something's out of line, and they will react to that much more than a child who is not an indigo. So literally, there are school systems that are going to be needed to be set up for these children that teach a whole new paradigm. And unfortunately, because right now there's a lot of messy things happening with the Illuminati underground in our governments, just watch what happens to any overt movement to try to create schools for indigos, and see how fast regulations and repression happens to anybody who tries to. And it's about teaching people how to activate that and actively begin using the earth energy, connecting with the earth energy, opening the 12th chakra, pulling it up, activating that shield in the planetary grid, then drawing energy up, 12th dimensional frequency, to recode the whole Cathara level of the body, which is the core template, which will recode the chakra system and the auric field and eventually the matter pattern and the DNA. This is the fastest process for recoding DNA. That's why it's being given. It's not just another healing system. You know, it's more than another healing system. This is a system of ascension. But it's also a system that is going to be needed when working with indigos. If you understand the Maharic recoding process, you will know how to help indigo children, how to help indigo infants. You can do this on pregnant mothers before they even come out to help the indigo children harmonize. You can do it on yourselves to begin and activate your own process of protection. Because it will, when you do this and that you create this activation in the shield, it turns into a pillar of 12th dimensional frequency that runs all the way up between your avatar identity, through you, and down into Earth's core, which means you can't be messed with on the intermediate frequency levels. All those little mind control programs they're trying to run, you'll block them out. You'll be aligned with your higher identity. That's why this level is being given here. There's too much at stake. So for the people who can grab it and run, the knowledge is indigos. We have indigo recessive. That is the type 3 that has 2 avatars in one body, the Nephilim and the Orpheum. That's type 3. That's the most common type. Okay? At least presently. Most of the ones coming in the next, between now and 2017, are going to be type 2 and type 1. And there'll be more type 1 coming in toward 2012. Because right now the planet can't hold too much of that frequency, because they bring that, even though it's not plugged into the DNA, they bring in their morph field huge amounts of frequency that if you put too many on the planet, when the planet's at this rate of growth itself, you can actually blow the grids. So these are all contracted. If 3 billion of these Emerald Order wanted to come in all at once, they're not allowed to, because they'd fry the system and blow the planet up. Energy is energy, whether it's in a body or in a planet body. And it's all about energy relationships. So the type 3s are the most common right now because they're the ones that have the lowest frequency of the bunch of them, because they're counterbalanced. If you take the 24-strand capacity of the Orpheum and combine it with a -11 capacity of the Nephilim, it basically comes out to a positive 12. They have the capacity to activate 12 strands. Most of them won't in this life. So they're not pulling in as much frequency as the other 2 types. They're doing their own little help the evolution program. Is important what they're doing, but they don't have to worry about running as much frequency as the other 2 do. Next type is the type 2. It's the indigo dominant. It's the next most common type. Again, it has more frequency running through it than the type 3, but not as much as the type 1. Okay? They've been coming in for 75 to 100 years in little dribs and drabs here, mostly since the 1950s when it was realized that things were going to get really weird here. All right. There are about 500,000 indigo dominants right now, and another 130,000 between 1999 and 2005. So these guys are coming in soon. These are little babies. Some of them may turn out blue. Some of them may be accidentally pyrokinetic. Those kind of things. Like if you happen to have, a grandchild or something, and you see it laying in its crib, and all of a sudden the teddy bear from across the room levitates and ends up in the crib. No, you're not watching Samantha and Tabitha on Bewitched. You're watching what an indigo can do by accident. It just wished it and it happened. Most of them, because the 4th strand is not plugged in at birth, will not have that happening. But once in a while, one slips through where there's more fourth strand activation, so that means more of the fifth and sixth are plugging in, which starts to give them some really odd abilities, like that accidentally starting. The composites, these are indigo composites. They're composites because they have to come in through a walk-in experience. When you have one of these, it can be very interesting, because usually if the codes are going right, by about age 12, you're not dealing with the same child anymore. Same overall being. It'll come in from its own oversoul level, but it's not from the same soul matrix. So literally, the souls change places. Same oversoul, but not the same soul. Different personality. You may find subtle changes, or you may find abrupt. Used to be an artist, now it's a mathematician. Used to love horses, now can't stand them. You may notice subtle or extreme shifts with these children, and it's okay. It's part of the walk-in process. It can be very confusing for them because there's still that part of the personality, the ego. The focus is out here going, I don't feel like me anymore. Something happened. Walking in is a whole experience unto itself. I could do a whole workshop on what that is and how to make it less troublesome than it can be. These are some of the skills that we're going to need to help these children to get to their potential. And they'll help us too. Because the more you work with indigos, the more frequency starts coming through their energy fields. And they become walking transmitters. And their codes will stimulate your DNA codes. So you will grow more rapidly and clear more quickly by working and being close proximity to indigos. It's you give to them, they'll give to you, without even thinking about it consciously. It's an energy thing that happens. Okay? And the most important thing, really, that we've got to realize, this whole UFO movement, contactees, abductees, that they make a very, very strong campaign through the media and the press and the psychology movement and everything else, that this is just hallucinations of, fringe people. Yeah, fringe of the mind control program. Fortunately for them, these are directly involved with the indigo birthing contracts. You have indigos coming in as hybrid souls. They're also hybrid gene codes because most of the indigos, particularly types 1 and types 2, the mothers have to have alterations to the fetal pattern done. They will be abductees. They may not remember it yet. That memory will be in there someplace in one of their DNA strands and cellular memory. If it would be too traumatic, that memory will be blocked. Your own soul blocks it. Only when you're ready will you know if you've been a contactee. And if you were, it started in childhood, which means you had that contract. Well, you were a child. It was already decided. For this time frame, it knew that it was a potential that these things would, evolve. Most of the contactee people are involved with indigo birthing contracts. The other group are involved with, not because they want to be, but with the negative side. When we activate strand 6, we're also working with the 6th chakra, the 6th dimension. We're working with a part of ourselves, part of our substrand DNA coding that goes with the Azurite race from harmonic 2. That was part of that lineage when we had the Elohai down to the Anahazi down to the Azurites. Well, the Azurites were in harmonic 2, and they were blue-skinned, and it's considered the Syrian imprint, where the Anahazi imprint is considered the Lyran imprint. We're going to start a little meditation, just go on a journey to find our Syrian selves, the beginning of our indigo selves, our 6th strand selves, our 6th dimensional awareness. We're going to find our blue selves, our Syrian blue within. To find that self, we're going to have to go backward in time and forward in time. Just close your eyes for a minute and relax. Try to share a memory with me for a moment. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there was a place where there were 2 suns. A place that looked like Earth, but it had 2 suns instead of one in the skies. And in the evenings, which happened once about every 6 or 7 days at our scale, there were beautiful purple sunsets. Try to remember or visualize beautiful purple sunsets and 2 suns somewhere Each of you have been there. To get here, you've had to pass through. It is the domain of your Syrian self, your Azurite self, your Indigo self, that resided within the systems of harmonic 2. That self of you exists in a different space-time coordinate, but time is simultaneous. It all happens at once. It just appears to be separated. Right now, there's a part of you that exists right now in harmonic 2. A part of you that is an Azurite, a part of you that is a blue Syrian being of great beauty, awareness, love, compassion, and magnitude. You can begin to sense that part of yourself by imagining someone standing behind you. And by the way, we've already done a group Maharic pillar, so if you want to pull up your pillars now, because we're doing energy work, you can from last night. If not, your fields are sealed to D12. You don't have to worry about anything you don't want touching your fields. But imagine something standing behind you right now and try to feel a presence of energy that's a bit taller than you are. And if you're sitting, feel it standing as if it has its gentle hands on your shoulders. Let this image stand for the part of your consciousness that's stationed in the 6th dimension. It contains within it the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional energies of your consciousness. It connects you to a different place in space-time that you passed through once and you will pass through again. If you ascend the slow way and don't go so fast you just turn into light and can't see any of the scenery. Feel your Syrian self behind you. Feel for a moment and visualize this 2-dimensional energy field, like a cutout of energy standing behind you, as a beautiful blue color. It's blue with purple swirling through it like a blue-violet color. And it has some flickers of a lighter blue and a little bit of green, but mostly it has the blue-violet, the signature of the indigo energy field. The way the indigos are born at birth, they come in with this. Try to feel the presence now of your indigo self, your Syrian self, your D6 consciousness. Feel it embracing you, gently putting its arms around you from behind. And try to feel its energy running across your chest as if it were arms across your chest coming from behind. And telepathically say to your D6 consciousness, I would like to integrate now and become more whole. You are me and I am you, and the images are just illusions. In giving this command, you are not integrating with something that is not you. You are integrating with a part of yourself you had to leave an incarnation in harmonic 2 to get to harmonic 1. For you see, the stellar beings are us on higher harmonics. We're not separate, even though our biologies are different. We're just different manifestations of the same consciousness, stepping down through matter density. The Syrian self, the Syrian blue in all of us, can begin awakening 6th dimensional consciousness and expedite soul integration very quickly. For a moment now, imagine that your indigo self has let go, has walked around in front of you. And keep your eyes closed, but try to feel its presence standing in front of you as you sit on your chair. Breathe in for a moment, and then gently exhale your energy and your awareness toward the indigo self standing before you. And try to spread your consciousness out within it. It's you, it's a part of you. Try to feel its presence and its wisdom. Next, imagine that the indigo self in front of you turns around facing the same direction as you are. And then it sits down and sits with you in your body. And it is only you and nothing else. Nothing else we will permit it to enter your fields. Only what is you. Try to feel the reality of your sixth dimensional consciousness awake in your body. Imagine the vibration and color of blue-violet running like a little electric burst of energy through all of your cells. Little bursts of energy that may feel like little tiny shocks inside the cells that feel good. Try to feel the sensation of this part of yourself. For just as on the fourth dimension you have your astral body level, and you have on the fifth dimension your archetype identity level, on the sixth dimension, part of your anatomy is your Syrian blue level of consciousness, is part of your own anatomy. Now imagine for a moment that your attention is stationed at the center of the pineal gland in the middle of the brain, and you and your indigo self are still sitting together inside the body. And imagine a large indigo flame of blue-violet light emerges at the pineal. Try to feel the ripples of its wave spectra, its frequency, running through the cells down the body. Visualize the cells in the body beginning to take on the blue-violet hue. Now we're going to inhale, and on the exhale we're going to push the blue-violet flame outward around us as if we're sitting in it. Imagine now a large blue-violet flame is all around your body, and your pillar of light extends all the way up through the universe, through it, and down into the Earth's core. Feel the energy of the blue-violet flame around you. And begin to breathe its frequency in. On each inhale, pull energy from the flame into your heart chakra. And on each exhale, expand that energy that you pulled in from the flame all through the body. What you are doing is bringing in the sixth dimensional frequency into your bioenergetic field at the fourth dimensional level. You are expediting activation of strand 4, 5, 6. You are bringing in more of the consciousness of your Syrian blue indigo self. Every breath you take while you stay stationed within the blue-violet flame and expand into the heart chakra and through the body will further bring those frequencies into the astral body, and that will filter down into the mental body at D3, the emotional body at D2, and into the physical body structure at D1 through the DNA. You can use this simple technique of joining with your Syrian self, bringing in the sixth dimensional consciousness by sitting in the blue-violet flame and breathing it into your heart chakra and expanding it into your body to more and more and more bring in those frequencies. And you may find tears come as great releases happen, for there is much pain stored between your three-dimensional consciousness and your sixth-dimensional consciousness. And as you bring in the healing frequencies of the sixth dimension, you will begin to shake loose those disharmonic patterns and set them back to the patterns of joy, which are the natural heritage of DNA that works properly and flashline sequences that are in order. Your Christed imprint begins with integrating the soul, and as you merge and regain your oneness with your Syrian self, your Syrian substrand DNA imprint, you will begin the completion of the soul integration process. And once that's done, Your Lyran self will be next. But first, find your Syrian self, your indigo child within. Remember that you have one, for it is that part of you, more than anything else, that will help you to understand how to handle indigo children here and what you can do for them. You will find sixth-dimensional consciousness opening in you, and you will be the ones that can understand precious children born with sixth-dimensional consciousness available to them. If you take home with you the memory that you have a sixth-dimensional self, and take home and practice every morning before you wake up, before you open your eyes, simply breathe a little bit in from the blue-violet flame around you and just energize your body with it. It doesn't take long. It is best before you open your eyes and make that transition. It'll help you remember your dreams better too. And then at night before you retire, put yourself back into the blue-violet flame. Like a sleeping bag, tuck yourself into it. And every breath you take as you go into sleep will pull energy from the blue-violet flame into your cells to help you complete the soul integration process, activating strands 4, 5, and 6 more rapidly. Take this with you, and after 6 months, you may be amazed what you've learned and how you've grown. So we suggest keeping a notebook, tracking some of the things that come to you. Write it down. It's worth remembering. It's worth looking back on and saying, wow, look how my consciousness has grown. Then you will start to understand what the indigo children need. The processes that you will learn that will take you to those spaces are the processes that will awaken them in their highest light. And they will give great rewards in return in their presence here, in all that they will bring and teach. You can keep your Syrian self with you right now if you'd like. Or you can simply release it and see it go upward as a spark of light and out of the body back to its own station. But if you want it as company, let it stay with you for a while. You can separate it and put it out in your astral field and talk to it as if it's somebody separate, because it's a part of you forgot you had. So you might as well treat it as a new acquaintance. It remembers you more than you remember it. Or you can keep it inside and get the warm fuzzy feeling some more. Or you can say, I've had enough, I'll talk to you later. Or never talk to you again if you feel that way. Just come back into the room with your consciousness and realize the power of the tool of using the blue-violet flame and integrating your 6 dimensions of consciousness. It is your heritage, and it is just the beginning of your heritage. Reclaim it while the opportunity is here to do so it may be there for many, many generations to come. For if you don't reclaim it, it will be lost for many, many millennia. Imagine, as we come out of this meditation, a pillar of blue-violet light extending from way down into the earth's core, spiraling up, 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 upward into the universe, through harmonic 1 and into harmonic 2. And there it connects through Tara, Earth's counterpart there, into a planet called Sirius B from here. This is a portal passage that only indigos and higher can go through. It is the third eye of Horus. And whether you stay here for many years in a body and walk through a stargate, or whether you go through the normal path of dropping the body in death and going as a consciousness, you can ascend this time. And it is the Sirius B, indigo, blue-violet, pillar of light that you will take from here upward into the 6-dimensional fields. Remember these images and play with them. And they'll call to you because they are your home. That is how you came, and it's how you will return. So play with the exercises. Find yourselves. Remember. It is remembering. There's no overwhelm here at the 6-dimensional state of consciousness. Feel the peace now in the room. No overwhelm. know, oh, look at all that information. Your Syrian self understands about the indigos, about the history. It knows all that stuff already. So it doesn't have to react to overkill of knowing too much too fast. If you feel overwhelmed in these days and weeks and years to come, bring your Syrian self into your body, because it will harmonize that, and you'll go into, oh, of course, I understand, and you'll relax the emotional body. I'd like to thank you for coming, and I hope that you'll come back, those who are interested in strategies that need to be taken for the indigos. I hope you'll come back this evening for the workshop. What time is it? 6:30, we begin the next one. It's about 5 now. What time are we supposed to end this one? 5? I'm on time for once. I actually ended a workshop on time for once. I usually go an hour over. Thank you.